Hi, my name is Debbie, and I am obsessed with all things to do with ultrasound. I'm an empty nester who has spent the last 28 years scanning in all different kinds of situations: clinics, hospitals, point of service, emergency departments, private offices, echovascular, general, high-risk OB, and want to dive down deep into all things to do with technology, techniques, and transformation. It's time we take ultrasound to the next level. Think of this like your little power boost on your commute to all things ultrasound, along your way to the thing that we call work. So pull up a seat, make sure you're comfy, and be ready to be challenged and encouraged as we learn it's all about the frequency. Today's guest is Susanna Ovel, and she began her ultrasound career in 1983. She is ARDMS-registered in abdomen, breast, pediatric, obstetrics, and gynecology. Additionally, she is a registered vascular technologist. Sue has written instructor materials and test bank ancillaries for Elsevier textbooks and is the author of Sonography Exam Review for Physics, Abdomen, Obstetrics, and Gynecology in the 4th edition. She also volunteers with the American Registry for Diagnostic Sonography and the Journal of Diagnostic Medical Sonography. She's now retired. Please help me welcome Susanna Ovel. Susanna is a published author, and I've asked her to come on and talk to us a little bit about writing. I'm a little intrigued about writing. I haven't stuck my big toe in yet to start writing or learning the finesse of that. But Susanna has written several books on different topics. And so she's here to talk to us about the process of doing that. So thank you for joining us, Susanna.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got into ultrasound, why you got into ultrasound, and maybe a little bit about why you decided to start writing.
So I started way back in the time where ultrasound programs were not as prevalent as they are now. So I'm kind of I'm not quite a dinosaur, but I did start when there was still static scanning. We had real time. But we did not have a keyboard. So you had to remember what you had, and then you came out and you had to write down what each of the images were. And you didn't have anything to tell you what your BPD was or any of that kind of stuff. You just did your measurements and you went out and found it. So I went to x-ray school, came out of x-ray school. They didn't have CT. They didn't have MRI. This is in like the late 70s, early 80s. And so I finished that and I thought, this is really going to bore me. So my mom says, you're not going to try it. So I thought, well, I got to try this at least. And you get out, you're young and you don't have to be under the parents, And so I thought, well, x-ray, it's not so bad after all. And I worked for a company. They're no longer a company now, they've sold out or whatever. It was called Radiological Associates of Sacramento. And they gave me my first x-ray job. And about 4 years into it, they said, we'll pay you your regular wage if you'll learn ultrasound. So they handed me $3, Crim Cal Physics, Callan's, OBGYN, and I don't remember what my abdomen was. And they said, follow those girls. We expect you to take and pass the boards. So at that point, when I got into the ultrasound, that was really exciting to me. That is where my niche was, because you're always having to think. It's always changing and et cetera. So when I started working with ultrasound, I was working at a hospital, and they had a community college that was teaching ultrasound for cross trainers like I was. And so I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any cross training or anybody to go to trying to learn physics on your own and all that kind of stuff. So this opening came up and one of the sonographers said, why don't you apply? And I said, I don't know how to teach. And they say, you teach all the time, you just don't know it. So
Mm-hmm.
I started with that, started teaching, taught for about 4 or 5 years with the different subjects. I think my first class was transducers coming into physics with 2 bioengineers. And I thought, if I can make it through this, I can do most anything, right?
Right.
Right. So, as scanning goes on, your arm starts to go. And it's like you need another career, all this stuff. And it's like, no, I really like this. So I went and started teaching. I was in a startup program, a clinical coordinator in that program. And when I left, they really wanted all of my teaching stuff that I had come in with. And so at that point and stuff, I thought, okay, this is valuable. This has some sort of value. And when I was in X-ray, for whatever reason, I got this idea about publishing or writing. So it was one of the things I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to do it or what to do. So I just, the first part is you got to figure out, what do you want to write about? Do you want a journal? Do you want a case study? Do you want some sort of book or whatever? So my idea was more of a review type book for sonographers. And I just went online and tried to figure out, how do I go about this? And I looked at Elsevier, Mosby, and Lippincott because they were the two major ones that we had. Right. And so I looked at what they had. And if you go on now to Elsevier, has a book proposal form that you can look at. I think, where did I put? I have a little thing here. Sorry. When you go onto their page, it's like in the upper left-hand corner or right-hand corner, and it says, let us publish you. And so that gives, if you're interested in that, it has journals, it has, books and stuff as far as that goes. And it kind of goes through and tell you what you need to give to them. And so I had no idea how to propose it, but somehow it must have worked. So
That's amazing.
Sometimes it's like you just throw it out there. So I sent him.
Do they give you an advance to write it? Is there any incentive?
They do give you a little bit. Usually it's a couple thousand or whatever. Each year it kind of gets a little less. It may end up being that they, get rid of those kinds of things as time goes on.
Right.
But it was always enough money for me to buy a new computer.
Awesome.
That was awesome,
important.
right?
That's important.
Right?
New technology. Yep. Well, that, or you also mentioned in here you can self-publish, right? Which is really kind
Correct.
of tough way to
Some
go,
people,
I would think. I would imagine.
right. Some people I know have done that. I'm don't have a whole lot of information as far as, but I would think too, you could Google it and find some of those publishers that would help you do that portion of things. And that way you would be making more as far as royalties. The publisher takes a good percentage of the price or whatever and gives us as authors a royalty. It starts off at least around 10% or whatever. And then, as things go on and contracts go, you can negotiate your contracts. At first you don't really, I didn't know what, and you're just kind of excited, number one, that somebody's going to let you publish. But it didn't start that way. When I put in and I gave them both into Lippincott and Elsevier my idea, and with it, there's certain things that you need to give to them. I gave them an overall synopsis. I gave them my curriculum vitae, your resume as far as what, who am I?
Right.
Who is it? Is my audience? What's my competition? How do I think this is going to be of some sort of benefit? Gave them a table of contents, it's kind of a draft. You can change these things. They don't have to be set in stone. Right. And then I gave them a copy of one chapter.
Awesome.
And so Lippincott, I got all the way up to the board of directors for that particular idea. And they said no. And then Elsevier pretty much originally had said no. They had something similar or whatever, but would I review for them?
Okay.
And so that's the way of being able to get in, since my name at the time, wasn't well known. People didn't know. I didn't come from a DMS, accredited program, was cross-trained, type of a thing that I started. And that doesn't make you a whole lot of money, but it really brought my library because you get free books.
Oh,
They're
right.
wanting for say the next edition, we need to review or something. What do they want? So if you're doing that and coming in on, bringing it in on time, and, you start to make a name for yourself. And so from there, there's actually ghostwriters.
Right.
So that's where you can make some money, is the ghostwriting for the books. So most of the books now have there's a teacher's manual. There's extra questions for the teacher's manual. They may do PowerPoints, different things of that nature. And so each of these different books, or there may be a workbook associated with a textbook. And those aren't usually the actual author that is writing those. Those are ghostwriters.
Okay.
So there's different avenues of you to get into the publishing part of a system, if to end up publishing something on your own, is kind of how it worked for me.
Awesome. That's interesting to know that you didn't get in on your proposal. You got in by doing editing, and then
Correct.
they approved a proposal for you. So
Right.
that's interesting, right? You had to give a little bit of something first. Yeah.
First to show. And then it's like, I started, marketing myself or putting my name out there well before the first book came out.
Okay.
So I would do the JRC DMS site visits. Now they do a lot of Zooming, but then you were actually went there,
Right.
because I thought, who's going to buy a book if they don't know who you are?
Right. Right.
So doing a lot of volunteering work in that respect. SDMS, I review for the journal now and stuff like that. So it helps. Those types of things, I think, help you to get to that end result.
Awesome. And it's still, so now you are retired. And so now you're still a part of this community, which is wonderful,
Yeah.
while you
Yeah.
retired, right? Still
Yes, I
kind of
am.
gives you a sense of purpose, I would think, right?
It does, because you do find where people will contact you or whatever, that you helped them, and that's kind of the whole thing. Was I didn't know what I needed to know when I went to take the boards. At that time, we had, how we've always had to, well, we had to wait. Now they can go into certain ones. Like when I took the pediatric in 2016, we still had to wait. I had to wait 3 months or something to find out if I had passed or not,
Okay.
you know. And so I figured, if I pass the boards, then I must know at least something about how to pass the boards, right? Because
Right.
they definitely aren't that easy.
Right. Well, I can definitely say thank you for creating those kinds of books. I've used plenty of them myself through passing several boards. So they are super helpful because, when you're trying to study to pass the boards, I don't know about anybody else, but I have books spread out all over, right? And I have
Right.
several different authors and several different review books and all this, that,
Right.
and the other. And so for me, it's like, okay, how can they say it differently that I would get it or understand it or challenge me to really know this topic, right? So
Right.
I loved having several points of view, different points of view while studying. So I think that's helpful a lot. So you submitted a proposal, you ended up proofreading for them, and then they accepted your proposal later.
Proposal. Well, they came in and said, yeah, because I had reviewed something that was kind of similar to my original proposal years before, and I brought it up and said, that's kind of what I was talking about. And so the review book is part of it, in the respect of, it comes in, it's in very table formatted. it's, a synopsis of all this stuff, but it's something that I would go to. I usually had one in my office or in my room, so
Right.
that, because it's like, I know that you can't
Right.
remember everything.
Right.
It's like, well, if it's not this, what other things is it? Or what,
Right.
what are the questions, especially at the beginning? Because
Right.
you know as well as I do that sometimes the patient will say something that they think is really odd and it makes complete sense to you,
Yes. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And and so what is it, that little thing,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes just knowing what's the most common thing it could be, right? There's
Right.
something wrong. What this fits this characteristic, but out of these three things it could be, what is the most common out of the three, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, that's another good way to kind of evaluate and stuff. So you get this contract um, through like, I guess back then it was like email, right? Because I'm not social,
Right.
not a whole
Right.
lot of social media back then, right?
Right. Because this was right at 05 or whatever around there.
And you can negotiate your contract. You were talking about
Yes.
earlier, right? So even after the contract is in place and sales are going on, you can go back in and renegotiate. Is that
It's usually that. I've never really renegotiated after the contract, but I renegotiate when I come to the next contract as far
to the
as,
next?
the
Okay,
next edition.
right.
If you get to that point, as far as doing that thing. And what I noticed, and one of the things that I think is really important that I didn't know at all, is that once you give them the publisher, you give them their, you say your imaging that you've taken or whatever, as well as your manuscript, they become their property.
Oh,
So
okay.
in my contract, is it stated they have added, because they're pretty much just a basic little contract that comes to you and you can go back and forwards.
Okay.
And I said, so in my contract, it states that I can use any and all of the information in my book without permission for educational purposes. I
Okay.
didn't realize that. Somebody had brought it to my attention when I was going to do a lecture, and they said something about, have you gotten permission? Or so I was doing some PowerPoints or something, and I was using my book as part of a reference.
Right.
I didn't realize that. So
Interesting.
as I went, the imaging that I give now, I mean, what I've always told the sonographers was anybody who gave me an image that I used and they were registered. So that got my interns, some of them are intern pictures, but you got to get registered before I'll use
Yeah.
it. And then I will credit you,
Okay.
because so in mine,
Right.
everybody that has given me an image is credited. And so now what I do is I credit myself.
Right.
So for the new images that I put in, so those are some of the little tricks. Make sure that you're not losing your own imaging, and then as well as being able to use your manuscript. Even though it's my writing, I still couldn't necessarily use specific stuff without their permission.
Okay. Awesome. That's interesting.
And then the
So,
contract, I mean, little things of, I know one of them was saying, that I had to treat everybody with dignity and respect and without racism and sexism and et cetera, which of course I greatly agree with all of that.
right.
But you need to say the same for you to me, because that wasn't in there. It was, type of thing. And
Okay.
so what's happening now is that the actual publishing of it coming out is outside of the US. So that causes some more difficulties. Mine is being mainly through India, is the one where it actually goes to them and they're doing the typesetting and etc.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's really sad.
So it is,
Okay.
and it's like a 13-hour difference. And there's a lot of cultural differences.
Right. So that
Um,
would explain, I know earlier we were talking about proofreading and the challenges it is to proofread, right?
uh-huh.
And to catch any and all, if ever that is possible, mistakes or errors. And um, I would think if it's going to another country, that that would be horrible for them to have to try to fix,
Right.
find errors in an English language when that's not their primary language.
I agree. I
So
think,
that adds
and
another
then,
dimension of difficulty to the
yes,
proofreading, I think.
I agree. And they talk about, well, I came in with names of reviewers that I had to ask if they would review the manuscript or whatever for
Sure.
me. Um, and so I see kind of that on their list now, their book form about, giving them reviewers' names or whatever. But they had also kind of said to me in this last one that India didn't understand it at all, what reviewing was. And so they're telling you that they do, but
Right.
they don't.
But they don't.
But they don't. And
Bummer.
so, yeah. So they were saying, well, we don't always, meaning they, being the publisher, was saying to me, well, we don't necessarily use reviewers anymore. And I'm like, that's not good because
Well, what are
um,
they trying to use? AI now?
AIs, I guess, or whatever. But as well as I do, we have our own kind of lingo.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I was thinking of this podcast today and I was trying to pay attention to some interpreters today, using Spanish. And, in Spanish, they say, what was I trying to explain? Oh, I said, this is the baby's head. And they said in Spanish that head and then baby, right? So
Right.
they speak very differently than even we do.
Uh-huh.
Um, in the way that it's formatted, right? Like subject verb
Right.
conjugations and different things like that, right? So um I'm thinking, man, how would you proof I could never proofread something in
That's a
Spanish, right? Because when you translate it, it translates very different, right?
yes.
So it's interesting that it's published in a different country. That's really sad to me. Huh.
Yeah. That'd be interesting now because my son-in-law is from Brazil. Not son-in-law, my nephew-in-law, whatever,
Okay.
is from Brazil. So I should take him the book, the one that's in Portuguese, and say, okay, read this sentence for me and tell me what it says.
Yeah.
Because, I have the
That would
book,
be
but I looked
interesting.
at it and I know my name, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that would be very, very interesting.
It would. I never thought about that. And that does make a lot of sense as to why, because sometimes, mine is a review. So it's a question, they're having, it's like, I don't know, between the book and what's online is about 2,600 questions total. And so
Wow.
sometimes, they will grammar it, right? I'm not necessarily, I've learned,
Right. Right.
science was my forte, not English. Was that just wasn't my thing.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's an interesting thing.
So tell me about how long did it take you? So tell us the name of your review book, first of all.
It's gosh, sonography exam review, physics, abdomen, obstetrics, and gynecology.
Okay. And this is the fourth edition that just came
Fourth
out
edition.
this last May, March.
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 And you can get it on Amazon. It's on Amazon.
Awesome.
And
So,
SDMS used to
sonography
have it.
review of abdomen, OB, and gynecology,
Physics in there too. It's got the
physics
physics.
and physics, fourth edition on Amazon. If you're a student and starting to study, this is going to be a good resource for you. So, tell us from start to finish, putting it all together, what is an approximate length of time that it took you to do that? And were
So
you
on the
working full time and doing this
right
on the side?
on the side. So on the original one, because I had taught for 4 to 5 years at the city college I taught physics, abdomen, and OBGYN courses. I did have that to start with as far as anatomy is anatomy. So, I mean, it pretty much stays the same.
Right.
So I did have that to kind of help me with it. But to actually, I was working, I haven't worked full time since probably 2000, mainly because of the shoulder, right? I just couldn't,
Okay.
it's like, you're not going to be able to retire doing this. And it's like, watch me, kind of a thing. So I was working 30, 32 hours a week.
Okay.
I had two sons or whatever, they were in high school and stuff. So the first book after I got because I just kind of wrote one chapter in a table of contents, right? It's not I'm
Okay.
going to write the whole book to start with before you get the contract or whatever. So I swore that it was like the little laptop was attached to me like a gun, because everywhere I went, I usually went with me because there's those little times that you have or whatever. So the original part to do all of the physics, it's 29 chapters, I believe.
Okay.
And so your 6 chapters of physics, and then there are 50 questions on every chapter. So the chapter 3 is transducers. So at the end of that, there's 50 questions that go to transducers. At the end of the physics portion, then there is a mock exam of 120 physics questions. Then I went into the abdomen, same thing. Each one has 50 questions and a mock exam of 170, I think, is that exam. And same with OBGYN. So it was a good 2 years for the first book.
Yeah.
As far as that part goes, to be able to turn it in. And then the reviews and stuff, because I don't know, I believe that things have changed and you need to change. If you're giving a new edition, you need to give them new information.
Right.
Versus just changing a few things. So that's kind of my process of things,
Yes.
They've changed the exam a little bit or whatever.
Right.
And so it would take me, I would give a year. And once I did the next editions, it would be a year. Okay. And then I would turn that all in. So once it goes into the publisher, they may come back and forth with some little different questions, trying to clarify some stuff. And so then it comes into you to get it, to look at it, and kind of how it is going to be in book form. Okay. Here's your manuscript. Here it is. This is what it looks like. And then that's when you really start going back and forwards with them about, no, this is not how I want it, or no, that's not what, because they don't necessarily, because it is being published over in India, they don't necessarily understand even my jargon of trying to explain to them. You have to really think that American English is not English, if that makes sense. So it may go back and forwards where I said increased brightness, decreased contrast. And it's like, what? So I took a picture. I showed how I had changed it, then took another picture to say, okay, this is what it looked like. This is what it needs to. Okay. To go back and forwards or whatever until you're happy with it. And then it needs to get in line. So this last one I got, smarter in the respect of there is a print date. So they know, like I turned mine in this last one in October of 23, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it came out March of 25. It was supposed to come out in December, but okay. The publisher can be very slow. And then they try to get the author to make up that time. So that was another thing I kind of put into my contract, was that the delays caused by the publisher will not be made up by the author. So you have to
explain that. I don't understand that.
Okay, so when they told me my book for the fourth edition was scheduled in October of 23, they said it's scheduled to be going across the printer December 13th, 2024.
Okay.
I have to have it in line 3 months before it goes to print.
Okay.
So I knew that by September, I would have to have my final review finished of everything. But it came around to June and they haven't even given me anything. So I'm saying you're going to have to move the print date.
Oh, I see.
Because what they will try to do is say, well, you will now only have 4 weeks to do your final review on your book before we print it. And you can only look and you can only read. I think we've all done that thing where you read something
Yeah.
and you read what it's supposed to be, and that's not what it says at all.
Right.
So it's
Right.
very similar. I can only do so much per day
Yeah.
type of a thing.
Making assumptions. Yeah, I would be a terrible proofreader. I'll tell you that right now. I
And
just, yeah,
right.
I wouldn't be able to do it. I just, yeah, I'm not that oriented.
Good. And the media is a different ball game. So the people who are doing your imaging and stuff, and so they're not imagers, and and I know how important getting that image correct.
Yeah.
And so I had an issue where I really pay attention to the social media and what people are saying because they can catch some things. The third edition, when it got reprinted, they reprinted it poorly. So it looked like all the images were like overexposed. They
Uh,
weren't,
okay.
so you try to explain they need to have a black background. And so they'll make a black background, but you can't read the writing.
Oh no.
So you're like, okay, you got to make the background, but we have to be able to see the writing because they're not imagers. And that's where I'm
Right.
like, hey, will you employ me? I will be the imaging approval person for
Right.
radiology, right?
That would be frustrating.
And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So
Wow.
I turned it
Yeah.
in, October, I think it was October 1st, 2023, and it came out March of 2025. Yeah.
Wow. That's a length of time.
Right. And it's like 5 years in between. So you have about 3 years if you get another edition, you have about 3 years of not doing anything,
Okay.
or not having to worry about it or whatever
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
And then it starts up again. But
Wow.
and as far as the royalties, you get the royalties from it. You get some other stuff from that. My royalties, because it's not a mandatory textbook, it's not going to be the same as it is for somebody else for a mandatory textbook.
Right.
It also goes in the price. So, you've got Sandy Hagen Answer 2 volume. I don't know what it runs now, but 250, 300, that's going to be a different
Right.
type of a thing, but it was also different to write it.
Right. Right.
But I go on a really nice vacation at least, once a year.
That's
It
good.
provides. So that's
That's
when
good.
I look at it, it's like, okay. They pay you twice a year,
Okay.
March and September.
All right. Awesome. Well, that's interesting. Um, wow, yeah. So I guess you could practice by doing articles, right? And submitting them to like
Correct.
SCMS or Sage journals or wherever they would print journals, right? And
Right.
articles. So that might be a good way to practice writing. And then,
Case case studies and stuff, because even with the journals and stuff, it's like, go ahead and do that. They have pretty good, they have tell you exactly what they want you to provide and stuff. They give you a really good outline online as to how to provide that, and then they go in front of peer reviewers. that look at and read the articles, and then they come back and they tell, I mean, like I think it's Kevin Evans right now or where, and
Mhm.
say, this is what I see, and there's specific questions that they have for us as far as, one of the things is that you have to make sure your references are within the last 5 years.
Okay.
So if you're
Mhm.
doing something that has that bibliography, you need to make, because some things have that, are rare, right? So you
Right.
may not see it. So there may be an article from 1998 and it still
Right.
pertains, but you still have to have something else that's more, more
You have to
recent.
dig a little bit longer
Right.
to find
And
something.
then it goes to that peer, and then it comes back to the author, to say, hey, some minor changes, or here's some suggestions for this, and then they can rewrite it and bring it back in. And so it's something like, if I don't know how to do this is a great way to learn.
Right.
um
Right.
it's just, yeah, don't take things personally, you know what I mean?
Right. Oh, I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Don't take it
Yeah.
personal that they're just trying to help you learn what the requirements are, really. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I talked to Kevin Evans a little bit at this last SDMS that I attended and trying to get my toe wet in that writing thing. And I'm like, I just don't know. Can I do this? And he's like, absolutely, you can do this.
Absolutely.
And so that'll be exciting to kind of um, adventure out into a new dimension of
Uh-huh.
this field, right? So I
Right.
think it's wonderful for people to just explore and try it out and write an article or two and see how you like it, and then
Right.
go from there. Because I do think our technology changes so much,
It
right?
does.
That, like you said, another edition, we need more information because things have already changed,
Right.
how we get information has changed and how we process it and all this, that, and the other. So, um, yeah, that's the one only constant thing in ultrasound is that things are changing, right?
Right.
So,
And
for us,
I'm
we have
hearing,
to reinvent ourselves to some
right.
extent. After you scan for 10 years or so, and you're a clinical instructor, or maybe you do teach a little bit at a college or a program. It's good to have some writing
Right.
on your resume, right? To kind of
Right.
beef that up and to have some credibility, I think, about
And,
what you're saying.
and there's people too. I mean, even contacting the publisher and stuff. I mean, do some Googling or whatever. I mean, you can
Right.
give some people my email or whatever, as far as, you know, try, how to market yourself, or how to go into the publisher. But there's people now that, like, I think Fred Kremkow, that was his last time. I don't think he's 80 some odd or whatever,
Right.
and I think he said, he's done, but his book isn't done, so who's going to take over? So,
Yeah.
there's other people, it's like, I don't know what to do. But some of us are looking to say, who do we
Who is
want to
willing?
take over what we started? So
Right.
that's a great way too, because you've got something to start with.
Right. You have a
Um,
base, a solid base.
Correct, and then you can
Yeah.
take over. Like I did that with in Merrill's, the X-ray
Yes.
Bible or whatever.
Yes.
I
Uh-huh.
took over the ultrasound chapter from Sandy Hagen Answered several years back.
Okay.
So that's another way of
That's
looking at,
yeah. So
do
share with us the email that you'd like people to reach out to you if
so
they
my
want to.
email, which people should understand this one because a lot of don't, it's rdmsteacher@yahoo.com.
rdmsteacher@yahoo.com.
Correct.
Perfect. So if you're looking to start, you need some help, Sue would love to help you. Tell us about, now I'm assuming that you were able to help design the cover.
Yeah, I mean, the last one I really got to, the last couple, first I didn't know what I could do. And so I think
Okay.
because nobody had told me.
Right.
So yes, I have had the imaging that goes in. I will give them certain imaging. Sometimes I give them a choice because that's kind of their thing.
Okay.
But this last one is I really got to do a lot more with it. And
Okay.
it's, with I don't know if you know what's Daigle, Rob Daigle wrote a book about he's with ultrasound and about doing PowerPoints with ultrasound. Um, oh shoot, I just forgot what I was going to say. You got to cut that one out.
That's all right.
uh,
You can cut
I
that.
know you were saying something about with Daigle. What was it? What were we? It just went
There you
right
go.
out of Daigle.
Doing PowerPoints with
PowerPoints. Oh, the colors. So the PowerPoints, Rob Daigle has a book and he talked about with PowerPoints. And in there, he tells you exactly how many letters, what your font size should be, how many letters to do more pages, and etc. And the color thing is royal blue background looks absolutely gorgeous with an ultrasound image.
okay.
It pops
Okay.
with gold or yellow and white writing. So those are the colors of royal blue, yellow, and white. So this last book has got a royal blue background with the pictures on it, and then the writing in white and a little bit of yellow. So it really pops. That
Awesome.
was fun. They may show me a couple different ones. I think the
Yeah.
third they showed me like three different covers.
Awesome.
Um, to say as far as that. And the back cover you take care of as far as what's the new things and
Okay.
stuff that way.
So then marketing, right? Like
Right.
just getting your name out. And so now we have social media, which I'm sure you didn't when you started,
Right.
thoroughly. Excuse me. So, yeah, just speaking at different engagements,
Yes.
SEMS, um, ACE, right, for
Right.
cardiology, different
Cardiology.
national organizations. Um,
Even ASRT, which is radiology, but they give off, their own ultrasound and stuff
right.
certifications.
I think there's a urology, one, two, IS something for urology, maybe pelvic
Oh, okay.
floor and urology. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of different places that you can go to speak. There's a lot of states who have their smaller groups
Mm-hmm.
that are organized that do CMEs within that smaller group
Yeah.
that you can present at. So there's a lot of different opportunities, grand rounds at a hospital, a major teaching hospital. There's
Right.
lots of opportunity there as well to present. So lots of different um, areas
Avenues
you
to do it.
can, yeah, volunteer and present and to market yourself as well as all the social media now. TikTok,
Right.
there's a whole bunch of stuff going on now. TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, which are all great ways to get the message out about your book, about what you're doing. So those are all great ways to
To look at.
get the word out.
Now, aren't we? I was hearing because I retired and stuff. I do keep my CMEs going and all of that. But I think we're talking about the recertification again. Is that starting in
Next year.
2026? And
Yeah,
I'm thinking that's another avenue now for the book because it contains all of them. And I believe they were talking about before that it was going to be like an open book test.
that is my understanding. So I did call ARDMS because I heard the scuttlebutt and I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
go to the source, right? And there's
Right.
10 questions per certifications. So if you have
How
5
many?
certifications, you have 10 questions per
Okay.
certification. It is open book, and you can take it as many times as you need to
Oh,
in order to
good.
pass it. So I don't think it sounds near as hard as what I think it originally sounded to me.
Right. Right.
So, but to have a good review book, I think um is vital, especially if you're training someone new who's coming in,
Mhm.
maybe just out of school, and maybe they've learned something that you're not as up to par on. So it's a good way to refresh, you know, your
Right. Right.
your skills and your knowledge from the book work, um,
Yeah.
right,
I would
versus
tell
the
what I,
practical. So, I love review books because I think they're just helpful. It's a good quick way to kind of just see, okay, where am I at, right? If there's
right.
a test of 170 questions and I get half of them right, well, okay, I know where I'm starting from, right?
Right. Right. That's how
Build
I
from
would
there.
do it.
We can build from there. So, what would you say? What would your advice be to someone who's kind of on the fence or thinking maybe should I try to write or should I not write? And
I would
what would your advice
definitely
be?
say, yeah, give it a try. Start with something, like if you say if you don't something smaller, like you said, a case study is something that you even if it's something that we've seen all along, the history may be different, the imaging may be different, or the imaging is really nice. I mean, how many times do you actually see a viable ectopic? So when you actually get that image or something, even though we've seen our intussusceptions or that type of stuff,
Right,
we're still
right,
kind of interested in what is going on in that even the history. Like, okay, here's the kid's history, but the pediatric here with a intussusception, but here's and it doesn't match it. You know what I mean? As far
right,
as how
right,
that part goes. um, and at least get involved into even reviewing. SDMS or the JDMS has reviewer parts so that you can actually, you don't get paid, but then you can see other people's work and see what's coming in. And I think that at that, not as a cut to anybody who's turning something in, but I think
right,
sometimes when you read that, you think, I can do that, because
right,
what you see is that ending article or the ending of how the published book comes out, but there's a lot of stuff that goes in between,
right,
that can be changed back and forwards and stuff, and so what if it goes in and it comes back, that just makes it better. So I
right,
would say if you're really interested, it was something that I always wanted to do. I'm not quite sure where it kind of came in. I remember a sophomore in high school, and as I said, science was my thing and English was not.
right.
And he was a student teacher, and I can still remember him. And he walked up to me when I would get angry about or have, I could really write really well. I mean, I would do better. And so he came up to me and he says, I want you to test for honors English. I didn't laugh at him because I thought my mother's tried to get me to do vocabulary.
Yeah.
And he said, because you will be published sometime in your life. And I don't know if that's what stuck in my head,
Oh, that was a
what
subconscious
he
seed.
saw,
I
that was
love it.
enough, right? So I went to go test for honors English and I did not get in, nor was I surprised,
And
And
you
so
were
for me,
published and multiple
right?
times. So
And
I love
so
that.
when I went and got into X-ray school, when we took our SATs, you just went in and took them. You didn't
Right.
do all this extra studying and
Yeah.
stuff. It was just kind of like a star or whatever test.
Right. Right.
So getting into the X-ray program, not knowing how hard that was, right? That was one of the things they brought up. Your SATs are high in science, but can you explain your English? And I remember looking at him and I said, nobody's perfect. I I'm 18. I didn't know, you know.
Yeah.
So with that said, it's like you could say, well, I don't have a great English background or whatever. Now you do have some different things. Grammarly.com is wonderful. I
Yeah.
did blogs for a year for a company, and I used that, not the AI part, just to put
Right.
it in, and it's like underlining it, and you're going,
Yeah. I love that.
okay,
Yeah. I
how
do
do
love
how do
that.
you change it, and then all of a sudden the underline's gone, and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. I
And
do
so you
like that. Yeah.
learn. Don't think you can't do it, but if you don't, try even one of those. ARDMS has stuff. There's volunteering for test questions. For the boards. And so that even helps you, how to put a question in or how to write stuff. They had some different courses and classes that I went to that was it, I'm like, oh, so there's different ways so now when I look
So
at
know how to write questions for tests.
yes,
Oh, now that would be fun.
yes,
I would like to do that. I would like to know.
yeah,
Yeah.
because there's certain ways that they want, yeah. I can't just think right off the top of my head, but there were certain words and stuff that they don't want, that they want you to stay away from, and etc. So that was an interesting part. I think I did peds because I couldn't do, abdomen, OBGYN, or physics because it's a conflict of interest.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but I could go into vascular or something that way.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm thinking with the license. We have to do it I've got like the 5 or so, abdomen, OBGYN, breast,
Okay.
peds. That, it's like, I have to do all of them, I think.
Yes, you do.
But
You do.
10, that's a whole lot better. 10 questions.
Yeah, 10 questions. So I was like, okay, open book, like we
Yeah.
can take it as many times as we need to. So, and it'll explain the answer to you. If you get it wrong, it'll explain. So,
Oh, good.
if you do get it wrong, it'll tell you the explanation so that when you take it again, or if you have to take it again,
Right.
you can remember, you know.
Right. I
So
know
it
that
didn't sound as bad as I thought it would in original.
right. Oh, I agree. And it's not like, back in the day, people were talking about, about this and how it got postponed or whatever. It's not ARDMS. It is their governing body is the one that's requiring us to get recertified. So I think that's for people to understand. It's not ARDMS themselves that are saying we need to, where it originally started, at least back in the day, was because the governing body that ARDMS is under, maybe like with the physicians, and our physicians have to recertify or do some sort of testings. And so that's how it got over to us, because we're part of that
So who is
entity.
ARDMS's governing body then?
Correct. At least that's how it started years ago. It
Well, who
wasn't
is that?
ARDMS
Who
themselves.
governs ARDMS?
I don't remember now
Okay.
who it was, but it was whoever there, like how we have our KHAP, type
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
is where it was coming from. And that's why they kept saying, we don't want you not to pass. But at the same time, I mean, we've all come across, if I had a cardiology, an echo, which I don't, and I took it back in school, and now it's 30 years later, I'm an x-ray tech. I don't know that I could go and take an x-ray. I might
Yeah.
remember the positioning. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Because I have adult echo, but it's been 5 years since I've done an adult echo. Right. Excuse me. So yeah, to hold that registry and yet not practice in it would be, yeah.
and so I kind of see what they're
So
saying and
I
stuff. And
understand that. I
you
would
don't
understand.
want to lose it if you can help it, in the
Right.
respect of, no, none of us want to go back and take
Right.
that test again.
Yeah.
But I was worried a little about it. Then I go, oh, you're gonna have to use your book and then go online and tell you how well it helped you.
That's right. That would be amazing. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your nuggets of information and your experience, strength and hope with this process. I hope more people consider it and take a look at it. Um, yeah, if we have to use things that are in the last 5 years, we need to be publishing about a lot of things so that we can,
Right.
right, have those to use. So,
To look and stuff. Well,
um,
thank you
yeah,
very
like
much
I
for
said,
inviting
my
me.
case reviews are good, and it's been wonderful to have you and to uncover this little hideaway kind of pocket of information, right? Um,
Right. I mean,
that people
sometimes there
don't really
are,
talk about in the day to day, right? And,
right,
I find myself when I am stepping into a new thing, I find that there's more people who want you to be successful in that one thing than what you even realize. Like I've had
right.
physicians really step up and help meet me where I'm wanting to go. Like I want to try and do this. And they're like, oh yeah, let's do this,
Isn't it
They
nice?
won't do it for me, but they'll certainly support me and give me the information I need in order to do that.
Right. It's like I'd like to
So
try to do this exam, or can I um
I'd like to
we made
write.
it.
Can you help me find some articles and blah, blah, blah. And you'd be surprised. I mean, I went into one doctor and he just went right up to his library and went through all these journals and he pulled out one journal and went right to the page. It's like they have this picture mind that just I know where this is,
Yes.
in a library format kind of thing. And so it's amazing, and they're very
Yeah.
supportive. So I think in any process with this, you'll find more people that support you and help you and
Yes.
encourage you to move forward in a positive way than any negative feedback you would ever have. You're always going to get some feedback that improve here, improve there. Gosh, I've been out of school for how long? I don't know if I could write very well at all right now. But once
Right,
you get
right.
into that mode and into that way of thinking, then things start to become easier for you, right?
Hmm.
So,
Right. That's true. All right, Debbie. Thank you so much for inviting me.
absolutely. Thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning in to It's All About the Frequency podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Share it with a friend and remember to keep your frequency high.